things developing with 3 or 4 of the artists who've been in our anthologies, but these things take a while. But luckily, again, I'm in a position where I can like produce my weird little books for my fandom, and they up until now have been very, very kind, and I love them dearly for helping to support these books in a way that helps me not have to make 100 books a year and not have to make those difficult choices to publishing something I don't believe in fully.
That's got to be an awesome feeling, just to have that kind of freedom. What's do you have a project, like your dream project, if you could just like take a year or 5 years, whatever it takes, and just write something? Do you have one of those that's kind of your brass ring?
Well, I already do that. Like,
You
that's
already
the
do
nice
that.
thing about this company is like literally any whim that I want to pursue, I can pretty much pursue as long as it's in the interest of my fans and they are supportive of it. So right now I have kind of 4 things that I work on. The first is the Cthulhu is Hard to Spell anthology series, where or it's really our monster anthology series. The last 2 have been Cthulhu and Lovecraft related,
That's
but
a
it's
great
really
title.
just a monster anthology series. Thank you so much. And so that's like one little bucket of stuff that I put into. That's sort of like my dream artists. I get to work with all of them. Luckily, my dream artists are mostly like indies and a lot of them obscure, so I don't have to like go and go and try and hunt down like Todd McFarlane to be in a book. I can just like make my little weird books in my little weird place, and like it's been working for me.
That's
The
very
second
cool.
thing is I have a book called Ichabod Jones Monster Hunter, which is our graphic novel series, and that's about a mental patient who escapes from a mental asylum and becomes a monster hunter during the apocalypse, but doesn't know if he's killing monsters, humans, or it's on his head the whole time. So it just
It's
finished
hugely
volume 2 of
popular here
that.
in Vancouver, by the way.
Yeah,
Oh
it's
yeah, it's huge.
oh, yay, that's nice.
I
I do love my Canadian fans. I wish it was just a little bit cheaper to ship stuff up there.
yeah, that's something I
wish
think
it was
we're
a
gonna
lot
have
cheaper
to
for
work on.
anything up here.
Well,
Yeah,
that's,
it's tough, especially because we're doing these Kickstarters and like shipping just doubled basically in the last 3 months. Like since from September to now, it like double, like the shipping has doubled for to Canada and to internationally. So stuff that used to cost me $20 now costs me $50 to ship the same exact place, like to the same address that I've been shipping for years.
that's
Wow.
it, Gord. You're not getting any more shirts.
Yeah, that's it. I'm on my own now.
So
The cost just went up.
what's the story then?
I have.
Is there
Yeah.
a story? Oh, sorry. Give me 1 sec, Gord. Let me just ask this one quick. I'll
Well,
turn it over to you. Sorry,
yeah.
I'm totally geeking out here. Is there one story that hasn't been told by anyone yet that exists that needs to be told in a either a novel or a graphic novel or a comic book? Is there a story out there that no
Well,
one's?
I've been working
Sorry, go ahead.
I've been working for 2 years on a book series called The Obsidian Spindle Saga, which is about a girl who falls into a diabetic coma, wakes up in a place called Dreamrealm, which is sort of like Lovecraft's Dreamlands, and she has to get to a place called the Obsidian Spindle, which is the most powerful object in this dream world before she dies in the real world, and it's full of public domain characters like Oz and the Wicked Witch and gorgons and mythology and mythological gods and such. And my thing is kind of mythology and monsters, so I'm hoping that's sort of my dream project. I've been waiting to do it for when did I've been dreaming about doing a project like this for about 5 years, and I've been working in pretty much silence on it for the last 2 years. I finished the first book last year, and my wife and editor and proofreader all think it's the best book I've ever done. and I just finished book 2 and 3. It's coming,
Okay.
so those are coming from my editor hopefully in the next couple of days, so I can start working on rewrites, and then I'm going to be writing book 4. And then once book 4 is done, that's when I'm going to start releasing that series. So, I mean, can there be too many books about mythology and fairy tales? I don't think so.
Well, of course not. That's just
I'm
it.
sure there's something.
They can go on forever.
I mean, James Dio made a career out of it.
Do you?
Yeah, I mean, so
one question I gotta ask: do you ever surprise yourself when you're writing? Like I just, as I keep going back to, I'm working on my first novel, and there was a twist that came a few months ago that I just went, where did that come from? Like sometimes I catch myself off guard and I go, wow, why would I think of that? In the best possible way. Is it? Do you still?
Happened to me a lot more.
Sorry.
So that happened to me a lot more when I was pantsing. But there was a book that I wrote that'll be coming out in June called Worst Thing in the Universe. And as I was writing that book, we were getting to a big climactic scene. And I started crying because I knew that there was only one way out of this scene, and it was not good. And I had not planned it in advance. And so those little happy things, sad things are really exciting. But even now, like I feel like even now with my long series where theoretically things shouldn't be surprising me in the Gods verse, because like I've been writing it for years. Like I've been writing it since 2015, and it's my most popular universe. So I shouldn't be getting surprised by it. And yet I do still get surprised when I'm writing it, that like, oh, I'm surprised you made that choice. And I always think that my subconscious brain is smarter than my conscious brain, and that my subconscious brain has been making these connections that my conscious brain can't fathom. So whenever that happens, I'm just like, oh, thank you, subconscious brain, for.
I try to interact with my brain as little as possible. Me and my brain, he leaves me alone. I leave him alone. We just do our own thing, and hopefully nobody gets hurt.
Yeah.
Gord, you're being awfully quiet
like
over
to
there.
Just dump it.
Well, I mean, so much of this is so out of my realm of even being able to ask questions about. Because
as soon as you learn to read, it'll all come around.
Well, like, I mean, you're also talking about a guy who has the artistic skill of a drunk 3-year-old with no arms. So I just don't have the ability. So it's all. I mean, listening to you guys talk has been fascinating. The one thing I just sort of want to know, and you kind of briefly sort of touched on it, but like I'm checking out your published work, like the Godverse and Death Fall Behind Her. And I cannot tell you how overtly, stupidly excited I am to read these. I'm fascinated by anything that's got to do with religion, sort of religious overtones without a preachy aspect to it. But I'm just fascinated by the fact that this, your main character literally wants to murder Satan and to stop the apocalypse. That's just a fascinating thing. Are you? It's a dual-parter. Are you a religious person, or is it just, or do you use the overtones of this? Because I've seen this quite a bit of you've used part of religion, or at least the end of time, in a lot of in a few of your books, anyway. Are you a religious person in that sense, or do you just like the demons that can come out of it?
I feel like most of my career and life has been about trying to reconcile my Catholic upbringing. So I'm a lapsed Catholic. I still wear a cross, but not a crucifix cross. So a Christian cross, not a Catholic cross. But almost everything that I've done since I've left, since I got confirmed, was about figuring out how to live with the fact that there's a flaw in Catholicism that I don't know how to I I personally can't rectify, and that is this idea that God is all knowing, all powerful, and all good. Like I can
Exactly.
square any two of those, but I can't square the circle for all three of them. Like he could be all good and all knowing, but like a dick, he could be all good and all powerful, but not all knowing. He can be all good and all knowing, but not all powerful. But like I just can't imagine looking at the world that like he would have let it get this far if like all three of those things were true.
That's what we call the
that sent me
epistemological
down the
juxtaposition. That was my I studied it all through school. That was my biggest problem. And I just Gord just read I wrote a short story all about this subject that is actually kind of picking up a little bit of steam up here finally. But yeah, the God is, there's no way he's a nice guy. He just can't be.
Well, that's what sent me to first Eastern religion and then pagan religions, and got me obsessed with mythologies all over the world because I can square very easily most other mythologies. Like I can square even the Jewish mythology because like God's a dick to them. Like God's a dick, and they're just like, well, you're dick, but like whatever, you are God, so I guess we're just gonna put up with it. It's only in this very specific religious context where like God also becomes all good. Like I really like so the God's verse. The big overarching thing of the gods verse is that all gods are real. That's how we used to have so many god sightings, and we didn't. But so when a habitable world is formed, all the gods kind of come and make sure that it's that it works, like that it's sustainable. Like when you start a business and like you have to be in every part of it to make sure that it's like, because it's very fragile life. But then once it's kind of sustainable and like the humans are there and everything, like the other gods screw off to the next like place that they're trying to build, and they leave one regent in charge. And the regent that we get is Bacchus, who's a vain drunk. So he does a couple of things. First, he's incompetent. Second, he's very vain. So he turns all of the temples which are supposed to be there to worship the old gods, and he kind of turns them all into churches that all worship him. So this is not supposed to happen in any other world. Like they're all supposed to be like worshiping all of the gods because like that's who created them, all of the gods together. So that is sort of the way that I fix that flaw, where it's like you could actually go all over the world and watch how, for instance, we just went to Rome. I just went to Rome on a research trip, and you can go into the Parthenon and you can see how it used to be a church, a temple for multiple gods, and it got converted into a church. And all over Rome, all of these temples are now churches, either built atop churches or just either built atop temples or literally just converted straight into churches from temples. So you can literally watch all of these things happen. And I believe that like if we're created in God's image, then like we're kind of petty and dickish and like vain and greedy, and we're nice too. Like we have our good qualities. We're not all bad, but like we're definitely not all good. And like I couldn't imagine like I can imagine a group of like kind of shitty gods like making humanity and just like, well, that's the best we got. Like they're us, but just like us, a slightly worse version of us. So
they're us just without the powers.
Right, exactly. So that's like I understand that, and I think that most of my work, going back to the very beginning, is about like religion and at least the power dynamics of religion and how people take power and how gods assume power. And I think the God's verse and the work that I'm doing now is kind of the kind of all of the things that I'm working on, all of the narrative threads, whether it's the vessel, which deals a lot with like power and religion, and or like Worst Thing in the Universe, which will be out, which is narrated by God.